Bible's creator spoke, so the elders ever tell, to walk again the ancient path of hope. It could be known from long ago.
So long ago, the story was told.
Long ago,
So long ago, the story was told.
Fire, the water, the wind and the waves, roaring beginning of days, howl the fragrance of sage, dancing the lights in the north, chanting a warrior's cry, courage to walk in the night, 7 fires burning, 7 teachings live, courage to open the eyes, humility, dust of the earth, honesty, personal ties, true purifying the search, respect never saying goodbye, wisdom understanding your worth. Love is creator of all things, perfection. 7, 7, 7.
all my relations, it's been a long time we've been apart. But my relations, the grieving has passed. A song of joy fills our hearts. Welcome home, welcome home. Welcome home, my loved ones, welcome home. Way out, welcome home, I said welcome home. Way out, welcome home, I said welcome home. I said welcome home. Children returning from faraway lands, mothers and daughters, fathers and sons, generations returning from the four winds. Brothers and sisters, we're all here as one. Welcome home, welcome home, welcome home, my loved ones, welcome home. Way out, welcome home, I said welcome home. Way out, welcome home. and the orphan, the people rejoice. We're all here together and we say with one voice, welcome home. I said welcome home.
Got it. Anin, Bojo, Sego, Walalan, Kia ora, bienvenidos, Huanging. What a joy and delight to greet you as we come together and honor the voices of the matriarchs and women in community in this NAIITS and Indigenous Learning Community Symposium 2025. We are thankful for the beautiful opening ceremony that we had and the welcome by our Haudenosaunee NAITS Elder Liaison, Adrian Jacobs, and our local Anishinaabe community representative, Levi Beardy, who is also father to NAITS PhD student Sarah Beardy, wherever she is. We're blessed to be able to join with our partners at Tyndale University and Seminary and our Indigenous Pathways Board, who will bring greetings in a few minutes. We want to recognize those in our community this evening, and I know that they have brought their family and their friends and their cheerleaders who have ventured with them on this very long journey for some. And they are excited because the next journey is just beginning for many. We are thankful for our graduates who have diligently studied and diligently pursued as they seek to walk in not only in growing in their own faith, but also as Indigenous followers of the Jesus way. And it's a wonderful thing to see how they've grown in knowledge. I was going to say wisdom, but I'm still wondering about that one. But they've also experienced the community and brought much joy and laughter and a little bit of sarcasm at times. So we have come to celebrate our NAITS graduates, and we are thankful for each one of you that have come. As we go through this weekend together, I hope that you will meet people that you have never met before from around the world. As somebody has mentioned, it is wonderful to see our global expression. And NAITS and Indigenous Learning Community is a global learning community. And it's a blessing as we learn from one another and share stories and songs and dances together. And so I'm going to invite Beth Green, who will do the land acknowledgement, and then Marjorie Kerr, who will bring some greetings from Tyndale University, and Crystal Porter, who represents our Indigenous Pathways Board as the chairperson.
Shari also asked me to share some words from my heart before I read the land acknowledgement. And my heart is very full for lots of reasons, but I want to name two. The first is that I don't know what it will feel like for some of you to hear me read Tyndale University's land acknowledgement in a British accent. So you can't imagine how humbled I am to be invited to do that. The second reason my heart is full is that because I grew up in a tradition that I'm just going to say, a Christian tradition, that didn't give full space for women to use their voices. And Tyndale University has trained women and men for the ministry since it began, and this has been a space where I have been allowed to find my voice. And you're sitting in the chapel of the Sisters of St. Joseph, who I like to think that even given some of the restrictions around women and ministry in their denomination, used their voice. And one way you can see their voice is if you take a moment while you're in here to look at the marble stations of the cross. They commissioned those, and they made sure that there's a woman in nearly every single one of those carvings. For thousands of years, the Greater Toronto Area has been the traditional land of the Huron-Wendat, the Seneca, and most recently the Mississaugas of the Credit River. It is part of the Dish with One Spoon territory, a treaty between the Anishinaabe, Mississaugas, and Haudenosaunee that committed them together to share the territory and protect the land. Other Indigenous peoples and nations have subsequently entered this territory in the spirit of peace, friendship, and respect. It is on these lands and in this spirit that Tyndale seeks to engage in its work. This land acknowledgement was developed specifically for Tyndale University in 2018 under the guidance of Terry LeBlanc and in consultation with individuals from Six Nations and the urban Indigenous community of the Greater Toronto Area. Tyndale University first entered into a formal covenant with NAIITS, an Indigenous Learning Community, in 2012. We acknowledge Shari Russell, Director of NAIITS and Community Leader for our Bachelor of Education program. We acknowledge Elder Adrian Jacobs, Elder Liaison for the NAIITS community and Community Leader for the Bachelor of Education program at Tyndale. We are committed to walking the road in fellowship with you, our Indigenous friends at NAIITS. Tyndale is pleased to also be part of the Canadian Learning Teaching Community for Decolonisation and Innovation. We acknowledge that our campus is located on traditional Indigenous land. And those of us connected to this community gather, work, and study in the context of this history. It's our privilege and responsibility to partner in the journey to reconciliation, sustaining a safe, welcoming, and informed place of learning for everyone.
Well, good evening, everyone. NAIITS elders, members of the Indigenous Pathways Board, faculty, students, graduates, and the NAIITS community. Welcome to Tyndale University this evening. It is my pleasure to bring greetings to this significant moment in the lives of the graduates and in recognition of the continuing relationship between NAIITS and Tyndale. And I say thank you for extending this invitation to me to be here this evening. Let me start with a very brief history of Tyndale, because the beginning is important to the present. In 1894, a small group representing 4 denominational backgrounds, Presbyterian, Anglican, Baptist, and Methodist, they gathered together to consider a new educational paradigm to serve the changing Canadian landscape. As a new century approached, there was a growing need for biblical and theological training for women and lay people in particular, who at the time had nothing really available to them. So our founders looked at the environment of the day and believed much more was possible. Tyndale began as a Christian learning community working across denominations and cultural divides to equip a new generation in biblical and theological education. And that spirit of innovation has continued to grow and is still very much embedded in all we do today. And I wear that history on my shoulders as I stand before you this evening with the medallion of Tyndale University. But more currently, for the past 13 years, Tyndale and NAIITS have been engaged in an educational partnership that began from a moment of both need and opportunity. And since then, it has grown and adapted, including changes in leadership in both our organizations. And it continues to engage in a relationship of mutual trust and support. Our partnership with NAIITS began in 2012, as Beth just mentioned, with the development of the MTS in Indigenous Studies. The official launch of the program was at the NAIITS Symposium in 2013, which was also hosted here at Tyndale. The agreement was renewed in 2017 and then again in 2022 taking into account changes in context and opportunity for both NAITS and Tyndale. And if I just paraphrase briefly, the current agreement states that NAITS and Tyndale enter this relationship as a means of jointly supporting the education of Indigenous peoples in Christian theological education and development, offering a curriculum that is culturally and pedagogically relevant to Indigenous peoples. So what does this relationship look like today? It includes continuation of the NAITS and Tyndale MTS partnership. It includes collaboration on Lily Pathways for Tomorrow initiatives. It includes the continued engagement of the NAITS community leader in our Bachelor of Education program. And there are always conversations being explored in relation to new and emerging opportunities. In almost all of my public presentations, I reference the Tyndale University mission statement because I believe it is critically important that we at Tyndale always remember and talk about why we exist and what we're here to do. It's the foundation that is central to our partnership with NAITS as well, and so I want to share it with you this evening. Tyndale is dedicated to the pursuit of truth, to excellence in teaching, learning, and research, for the enriching of mind, heart, and character, to serve the church and the world for the glory of God. It's also important to consider how we work to accomplish this mission through our strategic plan, which is titled Flourishing, like trees planted by streams of water. Being a flourishing Christian university includes flourishing academics and extracurricular student activities, of course. More broadly, it includes students, staff, and faculty who are flourishing spiritually, personally, and professionally. A flourishing and vibrant circle of encouragers, supporters, and partners, such as NAITS. And importantly, it includes contributing to the flourishing of our surrounding communities, both within the Christian community and outside of it. Because flourishing for ourselves is not enough. Christ calls us to contribute to the flourishing of others. Walking along NAITS, an Indigenous learning community, is an important part of Tyndale's journey. We have learned much. We value and respect our partnership. We are delighted to host this convocation and the symposium on our campus again this year. And I am honored to bring greetings on behalf of our Board of Governors and Tyndale University to the convocation ceremony this evening. Welcome. God bless you.
Gwe of Jalasi. Welcome. On behalf of the Indigenous Pathways Board, I just want to thank you. It is an honor and a gift to be able to stand here and give greetings on behalf of the Indigenous Pathways Board and welcome you into this space. Earlier today, I had the opportunity to share in a devotion with my denomination, and I shared about my experience this past year of returning to my home, Ukdahamguk, Newfoundland, and the gift of being able to be welcomed back into the land. And I shared a story about a sacred place growing up where I would often find myself on the coast of the Atlantic, where I would often be able to dip my toes into the water, and shared a little bit about how I've never been able to capture the beauty of that place. And returning home, I realized it was because of the beautiful landscape. I wasn't able to capture the song that creation was singing to me. The crashing waves of that moment, the pink hues of the sunset, the flock of seagulls that would go by. And I remember sitting in that moment and realizing that I was joining a creation song that had been created centuries, generations before I existed. And I was a part of that, and I wasn't able to capture that. And so when I arrived here earlier today, I sat in the back, and as I watched familiar and unfamiliar faces come, and I seen smiles and laughter. It reminded me of those crashing waves. It reminded me of those pink hues of a sunset. It even reminded me of the squawking seagulls at points. And I sat and I remembered of this creation song, welcoming me home into this space. It is our gift to sit here and be welcomed into this space, to be welcomed home. If you are new, we welcome you to our home. If you are visiting, if you are a part of the community, you're one of the OGs, you are joining a creation song that has been a part of us. And so we welcome you into that song. We welcome you to come and celebrate our graduates. We welcome you to come and sit with us as we learn. We invite you to come and walk with us as we transform what theology looks like in these spaces. Walaliek, thank you.
Reo inga rangatira matina koutou. It's a privilege to sing for you all this evening. The song that I'm about to sing is a song of thanksgiving.
Halito Chimachikma. My name is Chris Haklutubby, and I am the Director of Graduate Studies for NAIITS and Indigenous Learning Community. And it's my distinct pleasure to introduce the representative speaker for the master's program, Marlene Walters. And in a moment, I will read a longer bio of Marlene. But as Marlene comes up, or will you be speaking? You'll speak here. I will note something that's not in her bio is the extent to which Marlene is leaned upon and beloved as the NAIITS dead mother. When there's a charged conversation, a charged reading, or when I just simply poorly pronounce something in class that leads to doubt in the rigor of your professors, Marlene's phone is open. And texts fly to her, and she provides a listening ear. When in person, it is her shoulder that people come to or will walk alongside of. She will be deeply missed. She is deeply beloved, and I could not be more thrilled than to welcome up our guest, or not guest, but our representative class speaker.
It's a very deep honor to speak on behalf of the master's students today. But all of these profs behind me, they just spent 2 years getting me to expand my every thought, my every idea into 12, 14 pages, sometimes more, and then they tell me I have 3 minutes to summarize it up here. So, seriously though, we want to offer our thanks to Creator, to our families, to communities, professors, mentors, and each other. In the each other, I include those who are still plugging away, graduation still in the future. What each of us brings to class is unique, and we benefited from each and every face on Zoom. We've not walked this path alone, and every step here has been shaped by all of those who have supported, challenged, and believed in us. For many, this journey did not begin in a straight line. We came to this program from many places: classrooms, kitchens, boardrooms, community spaces, sacred fires. Some of us returned to study after raising families, leading ministries, or retiring from long careers. Others are just starting to find their vocational path. We are adult learners, professionals, caregivers, pastors, activists, knowledge seekers, all united by a shared longing to learn, to grow, and to walk more faithfully with what we've been entrusted. Graduate study isn't easy, especially when it's layered with real life. We've juggled essays with family emergencies, Greek alphabet with full-time jobs, Zoom fatigue with spiritual fatigue, and still somehow kept showing up. That alone is worth celebrating. And let's be honest, many of us haven't written this many footnotes since, well, ever. And some of us have not pulled an academic all-nighter since the 70s and 80s. And let me tell you, recovery time has changed. Beyond the late nights and long readings, though, something deeper happened. Somewhere along the way, we realized that this was not just a learning journey, it was a transformation. We learned to wrestle with complex questions, to sit with tension, to hold space for mystery. In a world that often rushes towards certainty, we've learned the value of humility. In a culture obsessed with individual success, we've rediscovered the strength of community. And in systems that are often marginalized and divided, we've been challenged to lead with love, to listen deeply, and to create space for voices long silenced. We studied theology, justice, healing, history, and Indigenous wisdom, and in doing so, many of us began to see with new eyes. We developed two-eyed seeing. We listened more, we unlearned some things, we remembered what it means to belong, to Creator, to creation, and each other. And now, as we cross this threshold, we do so with a renewed sense of purpose. We are leaving this program, not as experts, but as stewards of what we've learned. Stewards who are called to carry this learning into classrooms, circles, congregations, policy tables, and community. The call now is not only to remember what we've studied, but to embody it. So today, may we go with gratitude and courage. May we honor the wisdom entrusted to us. May we continue learning with humility, leading with integrity, and serving with compassion. And may we remember that true education does not end with graduation. It begins wherever our learning meets the needs of the world. Thank you, miigwech, and congratulations to each of us.
So this is the time we've all been waiting for. I'll begin by reading the bio submitted by the students, and then I will make the sacred pronouncement of the honor of the boards to confer a degree upon our 2025 graduates. First is Jen Mason. Jen Mason understands herself best in community, the community of her family, of her home, and of the people who are family of her heart. One of those heart friendships that has profoundly affected her life is the friendship she experienced with NAIITS founder, Wendy Peterson. Wendy called Jen not only into the space and community of NAIITS, but into a path of discovery that has led Jen to see herself and her Creator in a new and expansive way. In the NAIITS community, Jen has also found deep and meaningful friendships that have given her the courage to use her voice and wisdom as a woman in community. She would like to thank the community of co-learners for their support and encouragement along the way, and a special thank you to Uncle Terry for echoing Auntie Wendy's words and presence in her life. Jen would also like to thank her husband, Jason, and her children, Wolf, Charity, Kingston, Patience, and Annabeth, for their sacrifices and generosity and love along this journey. It is the great pleasure of the board and elders of NAIITS and Indigenous Learning Community, in partnership with the Board of Governors of Kairos University, to confer the degree of Master of Arts in Intercultural Studies upon Jennifer Mason. Mackenzie Griffin is a Cree and Saulteaux woman from Sunchild First Nation, raised in the Alberta and Saskatchewan prairies. Since moving to Kelowna, British Columbia in 2018, she has completed a BA in creative writing and cultural studies and become actively rooted in her community as a writer, networker, and hand drummer. She is privileged to listen, learn, and share stories in ways that honor old traditions and shape new paths forward. In 2022, Mackenzie began her Master's of Theology in what would be one of the most challenging seasons of her life as she navigated the tension of unpredictable health and rigorous studies. Over the past 3 years, she has wrestled with deep theological and communal questions, discovering that most questions lead to more mystery. And that's okay. NAIITS has reminded her that she can live truthfully and faithfully with all of who she is, bringing her culture, her questions, and her whole self to the journey. I, Mackenzie, and I will take on the spirit of Mackenzie, Extend heartfelt thanks to my classmates, family, drumming sisters, mentors, and friends who bore witness to my long-winded rants, theological spirals, and late-night doubts. Thank you to those who have read through my thesis or dealt with frantic phone calls as I stressed and worried about what the heck I was doing. And to those still eager to read my work, even when I can't promise it's any good. Side note, it's good. Most of all, thank you to my NAIITS family, who will always be family. Without NAIITS, I'd probably still be trying to walk this long and winding road alone. And for that, I am ever grateful. Thank you for the trail of breadcrumbs people like Uncle Terry, Adrian, Casey, and Auntie Sherry have left. I cherish the teasing, jokes, and wisdom in the spaces where the NAIITS family gathers, and I'm excited to continue tracing the songline of this beautiful community for years to come. It is the great pleasure of the board and elders of NAIITS and Indigenous Learning Community, in partnership with the Board of Governors of Tyndale University, to confer the degree of Master of Theological Studies upon Mackenzie Griffin. Marlene Wolters is a member of the Silskazko First Nation in Burns Lake, British Columbia. She currently resides in Ontario with her husband, Charlie. She is a mother of 4, a grandmother to 9 beautiful grandchildren. She has been an active member of the Christian Reformed Church for over 4 decades. After years of faithful service and quiet searching, Marlene stepped more fully into her identity as both an Indigenous woman and a Christian. Her journey through the Master of Theological Studies program has deepened her understanding of Scripture while also affirming the beauty and wisdom of her Indigenous heritage. In walking these 2 paths, she has become a strong voice for reconciliation, healing, and truth-telling within the church and beyond. Marlene's studies have centered around the intersections of Christian theology, Indigenous spirituality, and restorative justice. She is particularly passionate about helping churches recognize the impact of spiritual violence on Indigenous peoples. Her work explores what it means to belong, to lead with humility, and to engage in ministry that heals rather than harms. She describes herself as a maverick of truth and sass. And she brings both clarity and compassion to every conversation she's part of. Her prayer is that the church will grow into a place where others like her can bring their full selves, their drums, songs, and stories, and be fully embraced. Marlene is grateful for the support of her family, friends, community, professors, and fellow students throughout this sacred journey of learning. She now looks forward to continuing her work in theological education Indigenous ministry, and community leadership. It is the great pleasure of the board and elders of NAIITS and Indigenous Learning Community, in partnership with the Board of Governors of Tyndale University, to confer the degree of Master of Theological Studies upon Marlene Wolters.
Good evening. My name is Damian Costello, and as the Director of Postgraduate Studies, it is my privilege, to introduce to you the representative speaker for the degree of Doctor of Philosophy, Michael Hogaterp. And Michael would be the first one to remind me that I am not just introducing him, I am introducing all three, and by extension, our whole program, our whole doctoral cohort. And I can say that as somebody who went through a traditional PhD program, I encountered something very different at NAIITS. I encountered people in my own who were experts, who sought to fill me up with knowledge and guide me to become some sort of holder of knowledge. And what I have found here at NAIITS, as somebody who came here 4 years ago when these three students had already started, is that in a very real way, all of them were very big mentors to me. That they showed me how to learn to become a real NAIITS community member, a real human being. And so I give you Mike Hogaterp.
Thank you, elders, for the appropriate and beautiful opening. Thank you, drummers and singers, for drawing our spirits together. Thank you, dear ones, for being here. I don't know that I'll get through this. So they say a good speech should begin with a joke, but I'm not funny. Which always gets Sherry laughing, so there you go. Now, it's not lost on me what an honor it is to be the so-called class speaker alongside Andy and Sherry. I must say it's also a super cool thing to share duties with Marlene, who's been a co-conspirator in decolonization work in the church. And I'm thrilled that she's blasted through this master's degree with such vim and vigor and integrity. So it's really difficult, as Marlene mentioned, to sum up a journey of years in 5 minutes. I get 5. So this has been a 5-year doctoral journey for us. But I'll say this, I'm fairly sure that our cohort shares gratitude for the beautiful gift of the learning community that we share. And a year ago at Symposium, I mentioned to a friend that the hardest thing of finishing this doctorate will be missing the cohort community. In weekly cohort meetings, we were regaled with Dave's wonderful stories about maple syrup and his prowess at Harvard University. Sherry's most excellent laugh and gift for calling out Bafflegab, Kimberly's gentle brilliance, and Andy's candid, dry wit, among many other gifts. As members of the first cohort, we figured out things together in community. We read things together, shaped our projects, and shared about the stuff of living. It was heart learning together. When we finally got through the worst of the pandemic and could finally meet face to face as a cohort in Wolfville in 2022, it was like a gathering of old friends, of family, really. The good work in the seminar room just kept going, in the excellent after-hours conversations over meals or something to sip on. Now, NAIITS is most certainly an Indigenous learning community, and we've experienced the rich blessings and challenges of that, yes, in cohort, and also in relationships with mentors and elders. My dear colleague, Nicole Forbes, loves to make fun of the fancy tuition words that I use. And our mentors and elders in the NAIITS community gifted us with some of those tuition words: reciprocity and relational accountability. And that walked with us throughout this journey. And with the generous permission of Auntie Patricia Courtney, I share a story about that. In our 2020 Zoom colloquium, some of us settler participants were using the word reconciliation a lot. And Auntie Patricia chimed in at some point and said, "Where I come from, reconciliation is actually reconciliation." That was really hard for me to hear. But what I heard was that the performances of reconciliation rarely connect to the lived experiences of Indigenous kin. Now, because of a passionate commitment to the truth and reconciliation process here in Canada, I was deeply rattled by what Auntie said. But generously, she later agreed to have a long and rich conversation with me. And I'm so thankful for it, because I received, Auntie, a gift of wisdom from you that day. You said something like, in order, Mike, to know your responsibility for right relationship, you need to know yourself and where you come from. That challenge drew me into a deep probing of roots and rootlessness, treaty responsibility for the two-row wampum and covenant chain. And I hope a deepening honesty about the gulf between articulated and lived expressions of shalom in my own life and the life of my church community. Auntie's words that day intersected with the words and lives of many faithful people: Terry LeBlanc, Adrian Jacobs, Michelle Nevedomi, Shannon Perez, Marlene Walters, courageous residential school survivors Jillian Harris and Isabel Knockwood, and my dear partner Michelle, just to name a few. The point of this story is that none of us graduates stand here on our own. Andy, Sherry, and I have been blessed deeply and profoundly by cohort members, elders, our families, absolutely, and yes, the beautiful and sometimes exasperating church communities that have shaped us. And in the community, we have also been formed to live the good news that the learning we have done is for Christ's love and justice in community. Today, I want to honor also the memory of Cornelius Buller, who supported this dream of a NAIITS doctoral cohort with Terry, because the communion of the saints and the ancestors is part of the community that forms us too. With all this, I simply say thank you to Creator and to this beautiful community of NAITS for the gift of walking this doctoral journey with you. Thanks to all of you for sharing this joyful occasion with us.
So our first graduate tonight, Andrew Mitchell, is a Pakeha New Zealander born in Ototahi Christchurch on the lands of the Kaitahu. He has ancestral links to the East Nuke of Fife, Scotland, Surrey and Brighton in England, and St. Agnes in the Scilly Isles, Cornwall. He currently lives in Wurundjeri Wurrung country in Narm, Melbourne, Australia. His doctoral work explored a theology of right relationship for the majority Euro-Australian churches of the Baptist Union of Victoria, who may seek to engage with local Indigenous community. This work was grounded in the biblical principle of shalom and resulted in a spiral-shaped framework that engaged 4 key questions for churches to explore. Andrew is also an ordained Baptist minister and serves as director of program development and lecturer in practical theology and ministry at Whitley College, the Baptist Theological College of Victoria, Australia. He additionally serves on the Baptist Union of Victoria's Ordination Discernment Group and a number of other boards and teams across the Union. He is a NAITS faculty member and is part of the editorial team of the NAITS Journal. He has previously served as a local church pastor and prior to this worked in the jewelry industry. It is the great pleasure of the board and elders of NAITS and Indigenous Learning Community, in partnership with the Board of Governors of the University of Divinity, to confer the degree of Doctor of Philosophy of Theological Studies upon Andy Mitchell. Mike Hogeterp is a second-generation settler of Dutch descent and is a party to the Two-Rome Wampum Covenant between the Haudenosaunee and the Dutch in 1613. Michelle, Mike's life partner, was the first to suggest turning the challenges and learning of church justice and reconciliation work into a PhD journey. And she has been a deeply rooted source of perspective and support throughout. Mike is grateful for his rock star mother who sat through his early learning struggles. Such saintly patience made a dissertation possible. Mike's dad was an eager conversation partner about reconciliation and theology. He passed in 2022. and sits within the cloud of witnesses, no doubt with a trademark wry grin. Family is a core part of the learning journey, and Mike is grateful for you all. After 20 years of the crucible of denominational work, Mike has experienced the NAIITS Learning Community as a gift of spiritual formation, renewal, and healing. The cohort is a rare and precious gift, and members and elders have lived grace and wisdom. Mike is especially grateful for Adrian Jacobs, Terry LeBlanc, Damian Costello, and Patricia Courtney, CRC colleagues Shannon Perez, Harold Roche, and Cindy Stover have been wise conspirators too. Words can't express the gratitude enough. Outside the shenanigans of study and work, Mike enjoys winter sports, cycling, canoeing, drumming, gardening, and cooking extravagant meals for dear ones. When in Ottawa, you are invited for some Gehelligheid and Michelle and Mike's place. Thank you, Mike. Oh. It is the great pleasure of the Board and Elders of NAITS and Indigenous Learning Community, in partnership with the Board of Governors of Sydney College of Divinity, to confer the degree of Doctor of Philosophy of Theological Studies upon Michael Hogaterp. Sherry is Nakawinawak, Anishinaabe, registered at Yellow Quill First Nation in Saskatchewan. She is a supporter. She is a supporter here this evening. She's supported here this evening by an amazing husband, Robert, the #1 cheerleader, so he says, and their 3 sons, Charles, Gavin, and Brannon, who have been an inspiration and encouragement for her journey to her PhD. Sherry has been part of the NAITS community for many years, serving on the board and now serving as director. When she became director, the painting by Simone McLeod, given to her by her husband and best friend, became especially meaningful to her. Sherry acknowledges the incredible community of support that has brought her strength when she didn't think she would make it. So many of you in this room are an integral part of that community. Her focus on her dissertation began as she worked with her own denomination, encouraging them to engage and respond to the Truth and Reconciliation Commission and the 94 calls to action. Deeply impacted by her family members who were survivors of Indian residential school, Sherry's prayer is that churches will choose the path spoken by the 8th prophecy that will lead to the eternal fire of peace, love, and brotherhood and sisterhood as we walk in right relationship with all our kin. It is the great pleasure of the Board and Elders of NAITS and Indigenous Learning Community, in partnership with the Board of the University of Divinity, to confer the degree of Doctor of Philosophy of Theological Studies upon Sherry Russell.
Just while Karen's making her way up, I just want to thank her. We met this afternoon. I taught her the song this afternoon, and she's already nailed it. And the song's called Creator's Masterpiece. It's one I wrote a number of years ago, and some of you may be familiar with it, as it was recorded as a duet with Uncle Richard Twist. He can hear the drums calling him home, the mountains mourning their sons. 500 years or so, the men are singing memories of the land. The sound of dancing comes, a symphony that echoes of the sun. He is Lakota, he is home, visual poetry, a man of honor, a man of worth, pride and dignity. Let all of creation lift up one voice as it was meant to be. Together, the Creator's masterpiece. Head held high, she beckons a new dawn. She sees the stars that lit the path her forefathers sailed upon. With trembling hands, her voice bursts forth with life, breathing a new song, a symphony that echoes off the sun. She is Maori, she is home, visual poetry, a woman of honor, a woman of worth, pride and dignity. Let all of creation lift up one voice as it was meant to be. Together, the Creator's masterpiece. He is Lakota, she is Maori, visual poetry, a people of honor, a people of worth, pride and dignity. Let all of creation lift up one voice as it was meant to be. Together, the Creator's masterpiece. Together, the Creator's masterpiece.
Would you join me in prayer for our graduates? Creator, we're thankful for each one of these that have completed their program of studies, but have not completed their journey. May they continue to take the next good step on their journey. May they hear the voice of the Spirit. May they hear the voice of the land. May they hear the voice of the Scriptures. May they hear the voice of the wisdom of their traditions and their cultures and their peoples. May they hear the animals and the birds and the waters and the rocks and the mountains. And may they be unafraid of their hearts, unafraid of their tears, unafraid of their laughter, unafraid of their mistakes, unafraid of all that may rise up to try to intimidate them. We're glad that they have begun a good work, but it will be completed with your strength. We're glad for each one of them. We link arms with one another, and we will stand with one another and not ever forsake them or our commitment to all that you've called us to. We're thankful for every good work that you've started in us. May that be completed as we continue to follow you with integrity and be able to laugh at ourselves too. Be able to listen to the women, listen to the mothers. Be able to move forward even if we don't know exactly which chair we're supposed to sit in. Inside joke for the platform. We're glad for everything that you do to take care of us. In Jesus' name, amen.
This is a special evening. Wow, we did it. And I didn't blubber all the way through it, surprisingly enough. This evening is a special evening, and it is focusing on our women, on those that have been influencers in our community, those that have influenced us and impacted us. Before we go into our symposium presentation, though, I'm going to invite our graduates to stand and for you to stand and to greet them just one more time. Seated. See, last year we had our first PhD graduate, Donnie Begay, and we now have 3. So if we keep tripling it every year, we'll be in good stead. So for those that are studying right now, you can do it. I attest to that. About a year and a half ago, our Canadian Learning Community for Colonization and Innovation, which is part of the Lilly grant that we've been given for theological education, gathered our NAIITS community, or some of our NAIITS community, in Albuquerque, New Mexico. If you've never been to Albuquerque, New Mexico, I would encourage you to go. It's beautiful. As part of this gathering, we reflected on our NAIITS community values. And one of the values that was articulated was the affirmation of women that we have seen this evening, that has been evident from the very beginning. On our board, at the very beginning, we had Cheryl Bear and Wendy Peterson, 2 women that have led the way and impacted many of us. When we began dreaming and looking at these values of who we are as a NAIITS community and how we live that out in community, there was an obvious connection to symposium. So many of us know NAIITS because of the symposium. And the symposium papers and presentations that are given throughout every symposium were faithfully gathered together, edited, and curated by Wendy Peterson. She is the mother, I would say, of our journal, the matriarch of our journal. We could not think of Wendy Peterson without thinking of one of these values of affirming our women. Sadly, Wendy Peterson passed away shortly after she received her Doctor of Philosophy degree from the partnership that NAIITS had with Asbury. But we're thankful that we have this legacy that she has left behind, and if you want to purchase the journals, they're out the door. She has left behind that long-lasting impact of the journal, but she's also left a lasting impact on many of us that have known her and loved her dearly. This evening, we are going to have a presentation from some of those people that she has impacted in her academic journey and in their lives, to come and share a little bit of Wendy's dissertation. When Wendy finished her PhD, she was invited to make it into a book, and sadly passed away before that was done. And some have never read her dissertation. We are not going to read the whole thing this evening. If you've ever read his dissertation, they can be long. So my husband says. He read mine to help me, as a few others in this room read my dissertation, and they can be long. Mary Chris, we do not have it down pat to 103 pages that you did yours in, but we'll get there. But we want to tonight highlight a gifting of Sweetgrass, which is what Wendy titled her dissertation. And so I'm going to invite Suzanne Jolene and Nicole Forbes and Karen Jolly and Jen Mason and Hannah Chapman and Cheryl Bear to come and to share.
And Wyandotte. The late Dr. Wendy Peterson is a Red River Métis scholar and missiologist. Although she has walked into the next life journey way too early, she has made a significant contribution to Indigenous identity and cultural reclamation within the historical and theological context. Wendy taught as adjunct faculty at Providence Theological Seminary in Manitoba, Canada for 19 years. She also led the Evangelical Fellowship of Canada's Aboriginal Task Force, later the Aboriginal Ministries Council, over 20 years. Many of us know Wendy from her energetic roles and involvement with many circles and communities. A few of us, Hannah Chapman, Karen Jolie, Jen Mason, and Cheryl Bear, are celebrating Wendy as a mentor and a friend. My talk will focus on Wendy as an academic. Wendy started to pursue a PhD in intercultural studies at Asbury Theological Seminary in 2007. I met Wendy there in Wilmore, Kentucky in 2009 at the PhD Women's Fellowship organized by Dr. Eunice Irwin, who played a significant role in the enrollment of 8 Indigenous scholars: Dr. Richard Twiss, Dr. Terry LeBlanc, Dr. Ree Aldred, Dr. Randy Wootley, and others, to study PhD and Doctor of Missiology at Asbury. After Uncle Richard passed in 2013, Wendy and I met more often and became good friends. The next year, Wendy invited me to attend the NAIITS Symposium in Portland, Oregon. She introduced me as her niece. I have learned much from our many conversations. First of all, Wendy is a dragon slayer. In her dissertation entitled A Gifting of Sweetgrass, the Reclamation of Culture Movement and NAIITS, an Indigenous Learning Community, Wendy listed the history and impacts of oppression and colonization in Aotearoa, North America, and Manitoba. In other ways, she named her global, regional, and local dragons as Indigenous marginalization, cultural disruption, Indigenous dispossession of land, and assimilation. She helps us understand the worldview conflicts between Indigenous values and Enlightenment thinking. The Omaha people have a saying, "It's easy to be brave from a distance." As for Wendy, she was living in the midst of these dragons. Not only was she brave, but also she was a visionary who saw Indigenous resilience, cultural revitalization, Indigenous reclamation of land and identity, Indigenous activism, and the importance of nurturing Indigenous theological education and the flourishing of Indigenous peoples. Wendy is a founding member of NAIITS in 2001, along with Terry, Richard, Cheryl, and others. They have faced many challenges, but they continue to advocate for Indigenous agency in contextual ministry, theological education, and community engagement. I remember that at Wendy's dissertation defense, she was being asked why she framed her work so broadly and globally. She answered that sometimes some distance and removal from our own cultural settings can allow us to see more clearly. In many ways, Wendy's work trailblazed and reshaped missiological approaches to integrate Indigenous histories, cultures, and identities. It is also her wish that this generation and the next 7 generations to come will also embody and create Indigenous theologies that promote reconciliation and healing. In other words, more dragon slayers, please. Second, Wendy is an advocate to support the healing of Indigenous identities through a contextual theology that respects Indigenous worldviews. Wendy is a big picture person who can weave the historical and ongoing marginalization and the challenges Indigenous people and communities face. Her keen observation and participation in the Maori-led World Christian Gathering on Indigenous peoples helped her see the global resurgence of the self-determination, decolonization, and self-theologizing efforts. Her various journal articles and PhD dissertation affirm Indigenous culture and identity as creators' sacred gifts. Wendy's work emphasizes Indigenous knowledge and missiology. Many of you also know that Wendy edited several volumes of the NAIITS Journal. She contributed to provide platforms for Indigenous voices to enrich our theological understanding and Indigenous perspectives. Third, Wendy is a gift giver. Her PhD advisor, Dr. Mike Rinkwich, praised Wendy for teaching him as much as he taught. Her PhD reader, Dr. Eunice Irwin, comments on how Wendy brought, quote, her wisdom, humor, vision, courage, truthfulness, the gifts of a common life lived out in an Indigenous Christian way, end of quote. During Wendy's 11 years of PhD work at Asbury, more than 20 PhD women from many countries called her a role model as an educator, a wise mother, and a true friend. Our small circle of close friends, including Dr. Ruth Tipton and Dr. Andy Ponce, who edited part of Wendy's dissertation, deeply enjoyed Wendy's friendship. She was always so devoted to NAIITS, her family, her studies, and her friends. Like the title of her dissertation, A Gifting of Sweetgrass, Wendy also weaved different strands of people and communities together. Her only failure was her matchmaking skills. After all, she is my auntie. You can have scholarly conversations, but if you confide with her about whom you like, she might ask him out on your behalf. No, actually, she did. However, I miss her as my colleague, friend, and auntie. In all seriousness, she was a brilliant scholar and an excellent person. She fostered dialogues between academics and practitioners. She integrated indigenous cultural traditions of storytelling, music, and the arts into the learning experience. From December the 10th, 2018, the day she defended her dissertation and submitted her final draft, to May 30th, 2025, her PhD dissertation has been downloaded 1,350 times. Her work will continue to inspire scholars. Most importantly, she carried history's knowledge and healing into now and the future. She is a gift to all of us.
Tēnā koutou. Ko Hannah Chapman tōku ingoa, ko tūwhare toa te whānau apanui te whakatōhea, Ngaitirangi, me Ngāti Kahunguni ki Wairua, Huiwi. We've been asked to just share a few words of our relationship with Auntie Wendy and what she meant to each of us. And when I was thinking about what I wanted to say, what came to mind was lots of things, but what came to mind was gifts. My first memory of Auntie Wendy was at the gathering in Israel, the World Christian Gathering on Indigenous people. And I have this memory of her walking out of the doors with a bag full of gifts. She was interviewing people for different reasons. It might have been for her dissertation. There you go. And she had prepared gifts to give to people who shared their stories with her. The second gift that Auntie gave was her attendance of Goodwater, which was a gathering that Matt LeBlanc and I dreamt up and organised at home in Aotearoa. And Auntie wasn't too sure if she'd be able to make it because she was having treatment at the time. However, the timing worked out that the treatment had ended. She was still in recovery though, but she still made that long journey to Aotearoa and came onto my marae, my ancestral home, and honoured us with the gift of her presence and her participation in what we had dreamt up as an expression of our aspirations as the next generation, and she came to support that. The third gift came out of that gathering, out of Goodwater. We went for a walk one day, and I was telling her about this piece of art that I loved that was in a local shop, and she wanted to see it. She said, "Why haven't you bought it yet?" I was like, "Auntie, look at the price tag." The picture is of a woman emerging from the darkness of a forest into the light. And she admired it and said it was beautiful. And then we carried on. A few days later, everybody departed. And after they had all left, I went back to my room, and Auntie had left gifts on my bed. One of her necklaces, one of her triggers, and the balance of what I had yet to save to purchase that piece of art. That now hangs above my bed as an ever-present reminder of the gift that Auntie was and remains in my life, and of the potential that she saw in me and in us as the next generation, moving from darkness into light and drawing out that potential and calling out that potential. So I'm ever grateful for her love. I'll start reading. This is from page 122. Resistance looks different for a small minority such as the American Indian when compared to the African American population. The Māori population was significant enough to impact the majority. The Māori marched down the length of the North Island in 1975 in resistance to a government, quote, unsympathetic to reconciliation. The Treaty of Waitangi Act 1975 had been passed, but it did not meet the needs for justice and reconciliation as land lust had never abated. The Māori declared not one more acre of Māori land to be surrendered to the Pākehā and demanded control of Māori land in perpetuity. Literature raised the volume of the Conversation in 1984 with the publication of 2 books by Māori authors, Māori Sovereignty and Whakapohone. That is a gesture that's done often in haka, where the buttocks are revealed. So if you think of like Braveheart and that scene where all the men are lined up and then they turn around and lift their kilts, it's that. Just to give you the visual, because she goes on to talk about it. Activism grew alongside the cultural renaissance. In addition to Whakapohone, the turning of the buttocks, she wrote Mooning, but I felt it needed a little bit more explanation. In addition to Whakapohone, strategists produced t-shirts, wrote literature, created protest art and dramas, as well as offered workshops and educational kits. They also protested cultural appropriation and cultural violation, in particular against the University of Auckland's engineering students, all Pākehā, who continued to perform a derisive haka in mocking attire with obscenities and racial slurs painted on their bodies. The university took no action. Emotions boiled over in 1979, leading to arrests of Māori and imprisonment. Yet the marches continued, including a significant 2004 march. At last, socio-political resistance led to positive change. Māori was declared an official language. Māori education, although limited, was introduced, and Māori radio and television were born. Steps have been taken to recompense for confiscated land and a formal apology made by the government. Anglican, Presbyterian, Methodist, and Roman Catholic churches also moved towards a meaningful reconciliation. In 2006, Māori Monte Ohia wrote on the ongoing reclamation or transformation movement for re-establishing a traditional values-based culture. In his dissertation, Ohia does self-theologizing, incorporating his Christianity with his traditional values as a spiritual basis for decolonizing education. Ohia served as the co-founder and a vision keeper of the World Christian Gathering on Indigenous Peoples. Resistance did not belong solely to one era, however. The 1960s and 1970s proved significant as an active resistance phase for Indigenous peoples globally.
Hadi Stunda, Cheryl Bear Slee, Natli Westan, Dimden Usli. My name is Cheryl Bear, and I'm from the beautiful village of Natli Westan First Nation. I'm from the Bear Clan, and I'm really grateful to be here to talk about Wendy. This is hard. And I was struggling listening to Hannah share stories and also seeing the pictures behind us. So many memories. I'm sorry that you folks here can't see the pictures. The first time that I kind of really met Wendy was way back in the EFC, Aboriginal Task Force EFC. Shout out to Julia, wherever you are. She's here somewhere. There you are, sweetie. And I was terrified of Wendy. Oh my gosh. Like, what was I, 18? Just kidding. I was probably in my late 20s anyway. Not so young, but not that old either. So, and Wendy was this regal woman. You can see how she looks. She's always, I mean, when you know her, you're kind of like, regal? No, she was hilarious and all those things. But the way she presented, she'd walk out with her beautiful clothes, and she always just walked straight back, head high, and she was just, I thought, wow, she's regal. And I was like, what a wonderful Métis woman I'm meeting. And, but I didn't really know her sense of humor at the time. So, but I knew Terry, and I knew others on the Aboriginal task force. Adrian Ray were on there as well. And so I knew those guys, and then we would do the banter, and I would try to keep up, you know, try. But with Wendy, the first time we ever kind of exchanged the banter, I think it was Terry and Wendy and I were just, everybody's packing up to leave, and Wendy said, well, you know, I'm really happy that we're going, you know, nose forward. And I said, well, it's better than ass backwards. And Wendy was like, and she didn't really react, and Terry was like, guffaw, ha ha, and he was laughing. He did one of his big bark laughs, which he does once on a blue moon. But Wendy, she didn't react at all, and I was like, oh, shit. I was so scared. I was like, oh no, she's gonna, like, this is gonna be bad. So then but little did I know she had this smirk on her face. And she was like, ha, I'll get you back. And oh my goodness, she did. She got me back so many times in so many ways. And we had, I was always, whenever I meet a Métis person, this includes Karen, I'm always like, oh, Métis. Man, I had a really good friend who was Métis. She was as mean as a snake. The humor, we're just so, we call it sarcastic, but it's dark. We're really mean to one another. And the more mean we are to one another, the more we like each other, right? Like, how bonkers is that? But we love it. You'll get to meet my son over the next couple of days, and you can ask him some stories about the way they talk to me. I raised my sons right, I think. So with Wendy, I invited a crew of friends. Sherry was supposed to be there. Unfortunately, some BS happened, and anyway, choose your friends wisely. Somebody got in the way of Sherry being there out of jealousy, I think. But anyway, Wendy joined me on my 50th birthday with a few other friends and two of my sons, and we went to Paris. And we have some of the pictures you'll see from Paris up here. And oh, just lots of cool old friends I'm seeing up here too. But little did we know that Wendy was fighting for her life every day of those days. And she only appeared a little tired, but she never complained about anything. She had a headache one day. She said, I'll be okay. And was just a trooper all her life, and one of the strongest women I have ever met in my life. To put up with Terry mostly. She did not put up with him. She kept him on the straight and narrow, I'll tell you what. But, and when we were in South Dakota, at the NAIITS, one of the way back NAIITS Symposium, I gave her my big club sodas. I was like, I gotta fly. I said, I can't take it. She was driving back to Steinbeck. So I gave her 2 of the bottles of whatever I had, Perrier or probably the no-name Canadian Superstore one, of club soda or sparkling water. So she's driving home and she's like, oh, Cheryl, thank you. And she pulls it over and she's driving and she opens it up. And of course it's sprayed all over her. And she was like, Cheryl, what you gonna have? You did that on purpose. And I was like, I wish I was that clever, but it wasn't me. It was a total accident. She never believed me. She never believed me. I was like, I'm serious. But one of the things, I'd love to tell the story from her son, Chad, that when Wendy, and this was typical Wendy, like stuff would happen to her like this, and she wouldn't just be like, guess what happened to me? She would be like, guess what happened to me? This is so funny. And she'd include everybody in her, right? For example, yes, she loved that too. Adrian did that. Adrian, I hope you, if you didn't get a chance to read that, maybe it'll come back around again. But she would seriously, if somebody got her really good, and this is native way too, if somebody gets you good, you laugh. If somebody gets you really good, you go, hey, guess what? Guess what they said about me? And you want to share it with everybody because it's so funny. So, oh. What is she doing there? She's telling me, shut up. So, but this, just to finish my time, one of the worst days of my life was my 50th birthday because we were supposed to be on the Eiffel Tower and then on the Seine having a dinner cruise, but we never made it because we woke up that morning to Wendy really not doing well, and so we had to go to the hospital instead. So I sent all of the other people. Debbie came with me, Debbie, one of Wendy's best friends. We went to the hospital and we did about a 3-hour, 4-hour hospital vigil. And then we lost her. And we had to call Ed and the family. And Debbie was in constant contact with Terry, letting him know what was happening. And it was seriously one of the hardest days. Because she stole my birthday. I'm just kidding. Of course, I'm just being an ass. But we lost such a treasure that day. Someone who poured herself into people. And I remember at NAIITS, she'd be like, Cheryl, have you met so-and-so? Have you met so? You gotta meet so-and-so. And she was doing that not just with me, but with everybody. She wanted everybody to be connected. And she actually liked people. Like, I don't get it, but she really is the mother of not only the NAIITS Journal, but she's the matriarch of NAIITS. We would not be where we are today without her. Her constant support, her constant cutting humor, the joy she brought to everything. And we miss her so dearly. And I'm so grateful to Hannah for singing that beautiful song, Creator's Masterpiece, because it brought Richard back to me as well. Daniel and Wendy was there at that time when that video was done, and I think she's in it too. Anyway, I'm going to read the portion that, of her book, and I haven't been able to read her book because I miss her so much. Page 186. The first symposium formed an initial defense of contextualization and pointed to a healthier way forward. Since its conception in the late 1990s and organizational birth in the year 2001, NAIITS has become a well-recognized, it's true, and well-respected group of Indigenous women and men, some of us more respected than others. I'm not talking about me, I meant her. And non-Indigenous colleagues dedicated to the advancement of Indigenous people within the wider compass of those who follow the Jesus way. Journalist Sue Careless covered the inaugural symposium, noting 150 people attended. She wrote, participants, including Native and non-Native missionaries, theologians, pastors, and scholars from many denominations, wrestled with vexing questions about cultural practices that may water down spiritual truths and teachings by Christians that unnecessarily denigrate Native culture. She interviewed a professor who said, the Anglo hermeneutical company should trust the new emerging Aboriginal community that the Bible is their text too. We should be in dialogue. The Journal of NAIITS has documented each symposium. Thank you to you, Wendy. The founders of ROC organizations have learned hard lessons from systems which excluded WGIP, Wachoni International, and NAIITS have been, which excluded, period. WCGIP, the World Christian Gathering of Indigenous Peoples, Wachoni International, and NAIITS have been intentionally inclusive and thus have functioned as points for reconciliation, developing small and large circles of relationships across ethnicities. The ROCM is an example of Indigenous agency exercised for the good of both the Indigenous and non-Indigenous followers of Jesus. IFJ are frequently asked, is there still a role for white church leaders, denominations, and missionaries in ministry to First Peoples? My response is affirming, assuming those who minister do so alongside and are submissive to First Peoples, not over, while respecting the culture within the lines of authority, and they do not hinder the power of the gospel to transform.
I know I've already been introduced. I'm Jen Mason. And as you heard earlier, I'm here because of Wendy. I met her in 2016 in my role as accountant in the ministry in Winnipeg, inner city ministry in Winnipeg that I work at. And we were partnering with another inner city organization. They were struggling. They needed someone to do their bookkeeping, and so my employers sent me over there to go and help that situation. And Wendy was on the board of that organization, and she was the treasurer, and so she and I spent a lot of time talking about some troubled books that needed some help, and accounting, just the two of us. And yet, in the midst of that, she kept saying, "When are you going to go to NAIITS, Jen? When are you going to come to NAIITS?" And I said, "Wendy, I can't go to NAIITS. I can't go and do a master's program. I can't go and do that level of education. I took till I was 30 to graduate from high school. Like, there's, what am I going to do there?" And then one of the next times I talked to her, she said, "I told Terry you're coming to NAIITS." And he said, "Don't worry about that you don't have an undergrad. Don't worry about it. We'll figure it out. We know what program you can get in, and you just get started." And I didn't get started before she journeyed on. But I attended my first symposium in 2019 in this chapel, when we honored Wendy's memory because she had journeyed on. And today we honor her again, and yet I'm at the end. So I'm very glad that I can honor her that way, and that it's Creator's good timing that it all happens this way. And like Cheryl said, she just loved people, and she was everyone's biggest fan, and bought 20 copies of the movie that you were in, so that she can give them to everyone. And so, yeah, I'm sure she is happily being my cheerleader today. So this is from page 243. and another from 257. For NAIITS and others involved in the reclamation of culture movement, self-theologizing has often required a defensive attitude. Much like the stance of the early church apologist, the U.S. Native Ministries arm of InterVarsity Christian Fellowship captures this in the name of their ongoing conference, Would Jesus Eat Fry Bread? I can't remember how to say the word. Apologia. I couldn't remember. This apologia expectation, indeed requirement, is likely to continue into the foreseeable future. One obvious next step for NAIITS is an Indigenous theology textbook. The tension is to do theology without simply replacing one rigid system with another or pitting theologians against one another, so that IFJ, Indigenous followers of Jesus, are pressured to declare, I am of Paul, or I am of Calvin, or I am of LeBlanc. Community-centric and community-owned theologies can help to avoid those pitfalls. Page 257. Globally, Indigenous followers of Jesus, through reclamation of culture and contextualization of the gospel of Jesus Christ, have sought the ancient paths looking for the good way that will provide a sense of hope and rest for their souls. The debate over the reclamation of culture will not fade away anytime soon. There will likely be extremes on both sides of the issue. Whether or not the diffusion of the innovation demonstrated in this dissertation is irreversible remains to be seen. The resilience of Indigenous peoples suggests new forms of resilience to assimilation will emerge if needed. Meanwhile, those who reject reclamation of culture and its accompanying contextualization will try to protect the gospel from any hint of syncretism. Contextualizers will seek to release their people from bondage that God never intended and to restore their dignity on the new ancient paths. By this means, they will seek to function as change agents, active in society and in the church.
Danse Karen it sich gason masato sich koche. Lesini magisich kasoto katepimsoto. Hi, my name is Karen, and I said I'm from Gift Lake, and I'm Métis, and that's something that Wendy and I shared. And the name that our people, the Métis, have been given is the people who own their own lives. Because the history of the Métis people, they were not wanted by the Indigenous community and they weren't wanted by the European community, so they had to make their own way. And all of us know that Wendy made her own way. It didn't matter who said what, she made her own way. And I first met Wendy in 2002 when we moved to Manitoba, and Howard, my husband, had come to study at Providence. And in one of their classes, one of the policies, I guess, at Providence was that you had to have 6 students to run a class. And they only had 5. And Howard ran home to come and get me, and he said, Wendy said you have to come to class. I wasn't planning to study. I just came because my husband was going to study, so I started studying. And in that class, it was a pretty tough class. We were doing guided reading to Indigenous issues. And it was a really tough class. But I know that one thing I'm so thankful for is Wendy always gave us space to wrestle. And we wrestled, and I know Terry talks about, like the struggles that we had in having the drum played and all those other things, right? The wrestles we had. But Wendy always always gave us that space. She never pushed us. She was always there to walk with us and to guide us. And it was something that I don't know, maybe some of you know that Wendy is a really mean card player. So I don't know how many nights we would be at their house playing cards, and man, you didn't want to throw a wrong card, or you didn't want to do something that that she, and she'd say, boy, you're a mean player. She would say that to me. I'm like, you're the mean player here. But we spent many nights in their home playing cards, playing games with Ed and Wendy. And Wendy took our kids under her wing too. And our son is a musician, sings, right? And many times Joel would be going up or going out to do something, and Wendy looks at him and goes, "You're wearing that?" And Joel said, "I guess not." So he'd go and put something else on before he left. But this is something that Wendy became family to us, because we had moved. Our family, I'm from Alberta and my husband's from Quebec, grew up in Ontario. So we kind of moved to Manitoba, not having a lot of family. So Ed and Wendy and their family became our family in Winnipeg. And so, like she was always part of. And Howard loved going to Wendy's, because she said, he always would say, she has the best desserts. So every time Howard went to Wendy's, he knew that she would have some kind of dessert. So it was a real joy for us to sit under her, to learn from her, to walk with her, and to laugh with her, and even sometimes to express our struggles and our wrestles with her. And she walked with us and very patiently just loved us through all of it. And I remember we were heading to Alberta. My daughter and I were driving to Alberta when we got the news. And we were almost to Brandon, and Howard was home alone when we got the news that Wendy had passed. My daughter said, "Mom, let's go home because Dad can't be alone tonight." So we came back home and, just sat together and wept over our loss of someone who was our biggest cheerleader. When we moved here, when we didn't have family, she became that for us. And so we spent the night there, and then we took off again the next morning. We were in constant communication with Chad and Marcy, and so it was a huge loss for us. It almost felt like, now who's going to tell us what to do or how to do it, or who's going to lead us and guide us. But I'm so thankful for the part she played in our lives, and even in our healing journey and finding our way back to who we are as Indigenous people. I struggled so much with my identity. I was ashamed of being Métis, and I couldn't say it. And during my time at Providence, along with the help of Wendy, God began that healing. And today I can say I'm proud to be this Métis Indigenous woman. And Wendy played a big part in that. And I'm thankful to her for how she was always cheering us on. And even sometimes you think, oh, that was a mean thing to say, but it was just all in fun, right? And then you just laugh about it. And a lot of times there was so much laughter when we were together in their home, and even going to their cabin with them and stuff like that. So it was such a huge loss for us, losing part of our family in Manitoba. But I'm just so thankful. And I used to think, man, this woman is so smart, you know, like, what are we doing hanging out with her, you know, like, but she was, you know, like, the stuff that she talked about and how she is able to explain a lot of those things to us, like, it was amazing just to hear how, and I know that we weren't the only ones that she did this with. And I was always amazed how she loved her grandchildren. And, you know, when they turned and became teenagers, she would take them on a trip anywhere they wanted to go. And she was always that kind of a person who wanted to take you on an adventure. And she made it so much fun. Tonight I'm going to read from page 253 to 254. Since the mid-1970s, Indigenous people have taken up pen, placard, and public media to inform and more insistently rail against the power brokers in government. At all three levels, Indigenous people seem to have awakened, to somehow have regained the strength and tenacity to say no more. Leanne Simpson used the terms radical resurgence, 73. This resistance is ongoing at a socio-political level and creates angst for the dominant culture. Storytelling through resistance literature is but one strategy that has increased and kept the fires of resistance stoked. Books and literature have served as key diffusions, and communication channels have widespread introduction of contextualization. Indigenous people have also resisted assimilation into a full-orbed capitalism consumerism. This book finds its support in the Book of Revelations. In addition to the book's caution about losing faith, two eschatological warnings revolve around the willingness to, one, assimilate into culture in order to survive economically, and two, seek acceptance at any price and thereby gain an easier life.
I've got a lot of feelings about standing here, which is not new. I'm entirely made up of complicated feelings, I think, if you know me. I never got to meet Wendy in person, and yet I feel that I know her heart in an intimate way because of this community, because her heartprint is everywhere. The way that she has woven this ethos of love and acceptance and joy and mischief making is profound, and it's beautiful, and it is a gift. Nicole Forbes, Dishineke Shinshun. I am learning mischief, and in part because as a Red River Métis woman, I have become brave because of Wendy, because of Karen, because of other Métis women who have stood through our generations to learn and to love and to lead with grace and with humility and with extreme care for the hearts of others. When I was doing my master's studies, I wrote a paper on the community of NAIITS, and it started off as focusing on the theological ideas that have emerged. But when Damien forwarded me Wendy's dissertation, what it became was a revelation of the profound gift of cooperation and of a shared heart and goal. Her dissertation is a love letter to this community and a hope for what could come next. And everyone sitting here and coming here and listening to these words feels like a love letter back to her, and back to all of the founders and the founder affiliate people who sat in rooms and in conferences and on the edges of larger theological conversations and dreamed about what it would be like if Indigenous people could just follow Jesus in the way that was authentic to them. And that dream has become this, and it's echoed out and rippled out, and I feel very honored to be able to stand as part of this community and to be a bit of that echo of Wendy's hope and dream moving forward. And for me, yes, I have Wendy to thank, but I also have Cheryl to thank. I met Cheryl at a time where I was a bigger mess than I am now. And she sat across the table from me at lunch and she goes, "Girl, you just need to get yourself to NAIITS. Just show up to NAIITS and you will make more sense." I'm not sure if I make more sense, but I'm here anyway, and now we're lifers and you're stuck with me. So in honor and reverence and a bit of awe, I'm going to read from the end of Wendy's dissertation, how she summarized this piece of her heart that she gave to all of us. She writes, "My experience with protocol informs my choice of the metaphor of a gifting of sweetgrass. Ceremony is an omnipresent feature of traditional Indigenous life in both actions and significance. It encompasses all of life. In a braid of sweetgrass, just below the tie-off point, all strands have lost their individuality. They are not easily traced back to the triad in which the individuality of the journey began. Rather now, each is transformed as part of a collective, similar to the Indigenous concept of community. When the flame ignites the braid, it is quickly blown out, creating the cleansing smoke, the substance of the smudging ceremony. All the strands now identified in the singular rise holy and sacred smoke, which is cupped into the recipient's hand and gently directed to prepare the mind, the eyes, the ears, the mouth, the heart, the feet, the whole of the individual, to prepare the smudged person to walk with Creator in a new day." Robert Frost used the term walling out in his poem, addressing the thoughtless construction of walls. Elijah Harper had a dream to break down the dehumanizing walls constructed through colonization. Quote, "In unity there is strength. In unity there is power. In unity there is hope. It is a feeling I know our people felt every day hundreds of years ago, and it's a feeling I want all Aboriginal people to feel again." To amend the previous quote by Nelson Mandela, the reclamation of culture movement grew out of the idea that Indigenous people must first liberate themselves from the sense of psychological inferiority bred by 5 centuries of white rule. Only then could the people rise in confidence and truly liberate themselves from repression. To a different people in a different era, Jeremiah counseled, quote, "Stand at the crossroads and look. Ask for the ancient paths. Ask where the good way lies and walk in it, and you will find rest for your souls." Globally, Indigenous followers of Jesus, through the reclamation of culture and contextualization of the gospel of Jesus Christ, have sought the ancient paths, looking for the good way that will provide a sense of hope and rest for their souls. The debate over reclamation of culture will not fade away anytime soon. There will likely be extremes on both sides of the issues. Whether or not the diffusion of innovation demonstrated in this dissertation is irreversible remains to be seen. The resilience of Indigenous people suggests a new form of resistance to assimilation will emerge if needed. Meanwhile, those who reject reclamation of culture and its accompanying contextualization will try to protect the gospel from any hint of syncretism. Contextualizers will seek to release their people from the bondage that God never intended and restore their dignity on the new ancient paths. By this means, they will seek to function as change agents active in society and in the church. Under God's grace, may the Holy Spirit provide the same direction He gave those who wrestled with the problems of ethnic conformity to Judaism in the early years of the church.
You're coming up.
Is it on opening ceremony?
I don't know.
Oh, because somebody asked if it was, and then I said, Wendy could steal his birthday as well. So I don't know, maybe.
For those of you that never got to meet Wendy, I hope you got a sense of who she is, or who she was. And her dissertation, I saw lived out this evening. So her hopes and dreams as she wrote her dissertation, I think, are evidenced in these beautiful women that are behind me. And I'm going to invite them to come stand in the front. Oh. No, a little further. We want everybody to... It's a good thing Cheryl is not anywhere near a microphone. That's all I can say. For those of you that don't want to know what she just said. But. So as I sat listening to their stories about Wendy and reading the selections, I saw evidence of the impact of her writing on these women and many others. And one of the beautiful things I appreciate is the solidarity that came as these women may not have even known each other before they did this. But coming together and being able to share heart to heart and to bring these reflections, I think, is evidence of not only Wendy's dissertation, but the beauty of reclamation of culture that was written about. And when Indigenous women stand and reclaim who they are within their culture, their roles and their responsibilities, we are strong together. And I think this is a beautiful expression of that. I do have a little gift to give each one of you. Yes, thank you very much. It has been a blessing to be here, and what you might not have seen is as they spoke, there is a braid of sweetgrass up here. I'm going to give a benediction and invite our music to come back up to do a recessional. I will invite everyone to follow the recessional. They're going to make their way down to Alumni Hall. Please do not get lost on the way. But you're going to go straight out these doors and turn to the left, and then the left, and keep going, and maybe a right, and then a left, and then downstairs. So I will start and lead the way, and if you follow us after the recessional, you'll be able to join us for some refreshments and reception and congratulate the graduates and celebrate as family together. I'm going to invite you to stand for the benediction. God, our Creator, we give thanks to you for this day. We give thanks to you for all the ways in which you have blessed us and have journeyed with us through our lives. We thank you for each graduate that has graduated and their families and their friends and their communities that have supported them. We thank you for the lives of those that have gone on before us, that continue to cheer us on and continue to influence us. We thank you that they walked with strength and courage to pave a path so that future generations do not have to encounter the same struggles in the same way. We give thanks for that legacy. We thank you for this beautiful community that gathers together, and as we go to celebrate, we pray that you would continue to bless us, to guide us, to direct us, and keep us in the palm of your hand. We ask this in your name. Amen.
That's not it.